Good day, everyone, and welcome to this very first episode of Strategy International podcast. Thank you all for joining us. I'm your host, George Santrizos, and today our guest is none other than the founder, the man, Mr. Strategy International himself, my good friend, Dr. Marios Efthimiopoulos. How are you?
Good. Thanks, George, for having me today, and welcome yourself to Strategy International and to the show. And I wish you the very best of luck. I'm looking forward to see a lot of good podcasts that we're going to make together. And I know that we have shared already too many ideas, but I'll give you also the floor to say a few things about what we intend to do before you start asking me questions.
Honestly, this is super exciting, and we're going to get to what's happening. This is the objective of this first episode, basically to introduce this beast, this baby of yours, to the world. And I got to tell you, I'm super excited because it's been a little while now that I'm involved in this digital media world. Obviously, I'm not an expert, I'm not a pro, but it's this new era for everyone all over the world, right? And it's this huge phenomenon happening where people can just get informed, with a click of a button. And the fact that you're doing what you're doing, which we're going to go over, and that you're creating this sort of side branch into the company that deals with digital media, for me is very exciting. And I hope that it brings a lot of value. In fact, I know that it will bring a lot of value to a lot of people. And I was super excited to join in and to do this venture with you. Before we get to that, though, let's just tell everyone a little bit about us, because I had the opportunity of meeting you. We're not going to go 2 years now. We don't want to expose our age, but it's quite a while back when I was an intern working in Greece, and we met there. It was a NATO affiliated organization, and we met over there. And over the years, I followed you and the progress and the projects that you were doing. Thankfully, due to social media, right? I mean, it's the only way people seem to connect these days. And I kept following you, and you were doing extraordinary things. And we reconnected earlier this year on my other podcast, where we spoke about, some of the challenges around the Ukraine issue, which maybe we can even discuss later. I was completely impressed and proud of everything that you were doing, and I'm super happy to see these things come to fruition, because we're talking about this is back in February, where you were telling me all the plans going forward for Strategy International, and to see these 5-6 months later unfolding and coming to reality, and you guys progressing. I'm super excited.
It's us progressing, by the way, not we guys. Like you're part of this progress and this achievement, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the reason behind it is that Strategy International is not, operationally at least, it's not a one-man show. It is a consulting firm and a think tank that we actually created from the idea to have people from around the world and to be able to work together. We're using the best of technology abilities, and we're going to be using a lot of media, as you said, different varieties of media and different varieties of publications and different methods of approach of networking, of PR events, of conferences and webinars and seminars and trainings and so on and so forth. Open sessions, closed sessions, books, booklets, and goes on and on and on. But that being said, the achievement has very much to do so with the human capabilities and the capacities of the people to basically embrace what Strategy International is and what it will stand for in the years to come.
So let's jump right in there, Mario. Let's go through the W5, right? What is Strategy International? How did it start? Because I remember this. I mean, this is not new. I mean, it's new in its actual phase and the actual era you're taking it. But in reality, Strategy International is not new. I remember this, you had created many, many years ago, where it was a means through which you were organizing different seminars and conferences, and you were bringing different actors together, all with one purpose, right? To bring value to the people and to your members. And just recently, it kind of shifted. So how did this whole thing start?
Okay. Well, it goes back again years, as you said at that at that point, where a young scientist is actually graduated from his PhD, and he wants to do more than what the traditional steps are, the traditional pathways are, while at the same time and being allowed to write and take part in a variety of things, in different capabilities and different methodologies that would actually allow for the voice to come out, for the opinions to come out, to become public, while at the same time progress new ideas that at the time may not have been too much well understood, but eventually were very much understood some years later, including the events taking place today. Strategy International was a non-for-profit company that was created in Greece, and we created it initially with a colleague of ours at Strategy today, Joseph. Joseph Demergis was there as well, initially in the first steps, and later on we progressed the company as a non-for-profit. But obviously, one of the main elements or one of the main key positions, if you want, was the parallel way of a think tank that is a non-for-profit on the one way, and on the other, that actually promotes, if you want, discussions, scientific discussions, political discussions, public affairs, understanding connections with the market economies and with the people if they wish to learn more. Obviously, we were only young scientists starting, so the element of financing was not really there. We did not know. We did not know day one what are we going to do. We knew when we became a legal company, for even if it was a non-for-profit, we did not know how to do it. We learned how to do it. Years later, we found out that the non-for-profit company, however, could not go in parallel sessions with the expectations that one academic, one scientist would like to have. So although we had done many, many projects, including NATO, and since we're taping it today, that's NATO summit meeting taking place. We've done a lot of projects with NATO as well. We've done a lot of projects with other members, and we tried to host through our annual summit meetings different people with an agenda of international caliber, if you want. And all of these events were held in my native city of Thessaloniki in Greece, where we managed to do quite a very big deal of events. And we concentrated also not only in the actual event, but also in organizing ourselves. So eventually we started 2, then I became 1, then we became 2 again, then we became 4, then 6, then 20, then 27. And these 27 people were young people like us, and we were working together to try to establish different understandings and prospects and perspectives, while at the same time engage them young, if you want, people into their future capabilities and have their own future in their own respective ways, the way that they understand, and therefore utilizing Strategy International as a platform to learn and enhance their capabilities, personal as skills, and also their professional capabilities in being able to understand the complexities of the world that we live in today. Eventually, we led Strategy International through a variety of events. Our conferences ended up having 1,500 people and 32 different, government representatives of different government diplomats, local authorities, state authorities, and so on and so forth. And it also led me in a personal capacity to increase my value as a person with designated opinions, with the ability to scientifically research more, because I always wanted to travel. I was always traveling. I was always on a plane going somewhere. And that also helped me enhance, if you want, the knowledge, the operational capability on how to organize it, and so on and so forth. Nevertheless, as I said, the financial capabilities were not always there. And it was tight. Eventually, we found out that having an academic career or scientific career, this would not have been easy to keep it. Therefore, I took the decision to, if you want, put a freeze into the company. At that time, a non-for-profit. I actually closed it down legally. And then I followed up with my next steps in my academic career, my scientific career, today being an associate professor of international security and strategy. But then I never forgot where it started from, because it is very important to believe in your dreams. My dream was not to have just an entity called Strategy International. My dream, it still is my dream, my vision, if you want, is to be able to do what we're doing today, to have people from all around the world. So we have people from Hong Kong to where you are in Canada. By the way, George is in Canada. To have people in the United States, to have people in Holland, to have people in Cyprus, to have people in Israel, to have people in the UAE, to have people like everywhere, where we can actually blend in the civilizational approach and engage into a discussion, obviously considering the agenda, the international community agenda is big. So it ranges from global trade to wars, to conflict resolutions, to food scarcity and security, to energy security, you name it. But then again, I wanted to bring, and I still want to bring, the very best, and to bring them in to negotiate, discuss, explore together. Now, years later, the company was reopened as a consulting firm, as a think tank. And the idea is to bring capable and able people together from all around the world, different market capacities, not only academics, but also scientists, I'm going to say professionally, or professionals that work in the market economy, to be able to write, envision, lead, and put forward new ideas that can actually help in the creation of policies through governments. So we can propose to governments, we can propose to institutions, to companies, to people, to the politicians, to the entrepreneurs, to the business people, and at the same time conduct public relations with them or for them, to network different sides of the market, or different hemispheric, if you want, sides of people, bring them together and allow them to discuss. Put it simply, it's a discussion forum. It's a negotiation forum. It is nothing complex, either by definition or by action. Where it becomes complex, maybe for some, is that we have embraced technology. I've been embracing technology since day one, since I was doing my master's degree. And I was searching the web. Back in the days, there was no web. There was no even ways to quote the web and so on and so forth. And I remember one of my former professors, once he was invited to one of our conferences, and I was not even in the room at that point. I had stepped outside, and somebody called me, like, come in, join back, and said Mario was one of the very first people to extensively utilize the internet and its uses at that time for source creation. Right. So we want to be a source creation. We want to be a dialogue of civilizations. We want to be a think tank. We want to be a consulting firm, and we want to be able to do the practicalities that bring people together in the table of negotiations, and that negotiate on a real-time scale, considering all the issues and all the troubles, from business to society to elements of local governance, to international governance, to international community, and so on. And obviously, as I said, I cannot do it alone. And that's why we got good people like you that are now on board. We got people that actually not only believed in the idea or me, but you have done your own achievements, George, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And for those that do not know, actually, George has made a very good career of political affairs, and he's been advising for many years. So he's been doing very big things, including also his ability to do live podcasts. And that's why George was my first choice. And it was not only him following me, but I was following him as well. So the power of social media. But then again, I really believe that you can lead on the discussion for the multiplicity of reasons we had discussed before. You have a clear voice, clear idea, global understanding. You have a multicultural family, a multi-leveled space, and understanding of how the world goes. And it feels great to be able to sit down and talk with you. And I mean these words, because these are the expectations of the variety of people that will come through your show. And we really hope that we find more and more solutions to upgrade and upscale it week by week, month by month, year by year, because we're not going to have only podcasts from the known team, but we're also going to bring people that you consider as key importance, not only to strategy, but to those that are going to follow us and those that are going to listen to us, with the understanding that the internet gives you a bundle of opportunities.
Right.
To learn, to hear the sound, the voice, and the picture.
You're absolutely right, and the objective, and I'm confident that we'll be able to achieve that. I mean, the idea for me was always to add value, anything I did, right? And thank you so much for the kind words. And I'm very confident that some really good things are going to come out of this initiative. Let me go back to Strategy International for a second. You mentioned that the challenges of running this as a nonprofit organization. That led you to pretty much put a pause on it and follow, another professional path. Now you're back in a different context. What do you think, or what are you expecting, or what are you envisioning as a challenge going forward? Let's say in the next 1 or 2 years. We all know that starting an initiative, a business, a corporation, or whatever it is, anything, the first year or two are usually always challenging. What are you projecting that could potentially be a stumbling block, or any challenges that you think that you will need to kind of overcome?
The difference back then is we did not know and we did not expect the level of work that was anticipated for us. So we also had to make an earning for ourselves.
Right.
Today, I am trying to have this as a 100% fixed position in order to be able to secure the operational plans that we have put through in order to set up the company appropriately as it needs. So from standards to operational capabilities to facilitations, you name it. But I want to do it light form, because I want my people, my colleagues, to be able to operate everywhere they want around the world. See, COVID has shown us that on the one hand, technology may leverage, if you want to save, the needs and our dreams coming through. But then again, technology can be used in order to connect the dots. And this world which is quite big, through technology can become really small.
Mm-hmm.
And in a blink of an eye, we can have the information and we can utilize the information. So what my assumptions are is that if I would invest myself into this, which I did, and I took the risk, because it is a risk, it would really help establish a framework that is not there. Think tanks are international, but they're national in terms of interests. Very few think tanks around the world which are very known, and we have not even reached that level yet, obviously, but they have the capability to embrace the world and bring people in their premises. And I was part of these programs as well. And assure knowledge, understanding, the ability to interact to understand where you come from and what is it that you offer. And I really want to do the same thing. And I've been very honored to have been in the positions that I have been in my life, whether this was the United States or Europe or Cyprus or in the UAE, to learn a lot of things. And now it is our time, and I'm not saying my time, but it is our time to embrace these operational approaches, these choices that we have, and create something bigger, something global, something independent, something that is not interest-based of nations, rather collaboration of nations, and therefore the collective interest is what matters.
Mm-hmm.
So in the next few years, we will operate and fix all the operational approaches. We will synchronize with the international community agenda, if I may call it like this. We will take part in various events. We will create various events. We hope to create our annual summit meeting and our conferences and our trainings. We do intend to self-educate ourselves and educate others, learn as we go, but then again, go deep. What I mean deep, we're doing this and there is no turning back.
Right.
We're doing this no matter what. And we're doing this because that thing that I created back in the days where I was just young PhD with not really sure what the future going to look like. But then again, I had my hands and my knowledge and my capabilities has led me to today. Therefore, imagine what happens if I actually invest myself into this. And
so if you look forward in time, Mario, like in 5-10 years from today, where would you like to be? Where do you see
a negotiation center? A negotiation center.
A negotiation center.
I want a full capabilities negotiation center with a variety of sponsors and collaborators and governments and institutions coming here and doing the annual summit meetings and establishing themselves as a must forum where we are truly engaged into open and closed session meetings where we engage in between us and solving key issues and solutions. Obviously, as you know, in the Southeast Med, there is a lot of issues that need to be solved, political, economic, trade, you name them. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but it is not going to be only East Med because we are connected with the global trade. So we have to understand how global trade goes, how the international market economy goes, how the perspectives of digital economies or circular economies, digital or analogic, or the environment goes. So we have one planet, so we have to care of this one planet. So we have to be engaged on those policies on environment, for example, on the inclusiveness of the European Union, or if you want, the transatlantic approach, or how things are done. Why should we avoid war, and why is war not good, for example? So we have to look at those things in a perspective that we may have seen bits and pieces, but in order to do policies, we do require people to be able to explain to us from their own perspective, from their own land, where they are located, how things are done,
right,
which is called primary and empirical evidence.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to have the empirical evidence. We want to have quantifiable evidence. We want to be able to become, if you want, the interlocutor between company A to company B, government A to government B, government to business, and so on and so forth. And we go day by day, week by week, month by month. The business plan of a think tank may be there. The business plan of a consulting company may be there. But in reality, if you want to embrace the ongoing changes and the challenges that are now in front of us and ahead of us, we need to be realistic and we need to be global. And that's what I believe.
Yeah, that's amazing. I wanna discuss with you a little bit some regional challenges. You mentioned East Mediterranean, but before we do that, I just want to finalize a little bit on this new era that you're embarking on. Just give everyone a little perspective of the team. Maybe not specifically the people, but give us an idea of what you've composed already so far, the branches that you've created and the people that are involved, and give us an idea of the team there that you have assembled.
Okay, I'll start with the media team because it's easy. We got you in front of us, so you're part of that pillar. Okay, the pillar of exposure. I call it the pillar of exposure. Pillar of exposure should have the media outlet. I call it media outlet. Maybe I'm using wrong words in some cases, so forgive me if I'm, or forgive our audience for if I make any mistakes as such. But the meaning is the most important. So the media component. So I believe that people visualize, and what they visualize, they understand. So they want to hear more interviews. They want to have more vivid discussions. They want to have more lively discussions, not only TV style, but something more normal, something more like
Human.
Not well, yeah, well, human. It's human already, but without, if you want, standards of discussion. So you've got to be the problem with these sort of things. You've got to be ready to answer any question, anytime, at any level, and be able to reflect any kind of realities that may come to you. So if there's a difficult question, you have to know to answer this. So that's difficult. But then again, a podcast that you're doing, and we discussed this over and over again, the audio one, it really makes a difference. And in Europe, it may not be as progressive as it is in the US or Canada or in America, in the kind of Americas, or in China, or this and that. In Europe it is, but it's not prime time. So we want to make it prime time for our policy. The second one is that while we do the podcast, it is really important to also do the visual. Not only the audio, but also the visual. So we're going to utilize platforms for the video. Then the quality of discussions that are going to come will be enhanced. Once with you, then we're going to go into web TV. So we're going to try different sequences of TV. So this is more VIP, if you want, treatment, the podcast. But the web TV is going to be more like of a round approach. And I'm going to go to the element that actually says try to visualize with small documentaries, like let's say 2 minutes or 3 minutes, that actually tries to pass on the message.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, I stop the audio and visual. But then we have the publications, and the publication is also part of that media way, because publications are scientific, can be market oriented, and can be at any level. So it can be a small opinionate to a book, to a mini series, to a project, to you name it. It can be a blue paper, it can be a white paper, it can be a non-paper. All these political words that make sound nice, but what matters is the substance. And the substance has to be analytical with empirical evidence, the approach, and the ability for somebody not only to analyze, but to critically think and adapt elements that he or she thinks into the results.
Mm-hmm.
So outcomes that need to come out of this should be really reflective, the needs of the market and the needs of the real economy. While at the same time, if you do it, for example, at the level of government, you need to understand the legal perspective, the political perspective, the operational perspective, the security perspective, the financial perspectives, and so on and so forth. Therefore, think in multidisciplinary approaches that actually allows for somebody to read something and comprehend, understand, and proceed from that point on. Now, there are other services that we are doing, which is the public relations. And the public relations includes, if you want, the whole picture of how one person should be. Now, commonly known for those are younger people that, governments may have public relations companies, but also singers or actors or basketball players or football players, you name it. So on the one hand, you have companies that you can do the PR for them, but you can also have a private person. You can have an institution, you can have a team. So we tailor all the public needs, if you want, of the relations part, and we create a strategy, which is a policy, and we help them enhance their role.
Right.
The other one is the networking. From without the networking, you can't do anything. It's not only a matter of connections, but how you utilize those connections for the benefit of all sides. And this is the most important part. Then we have the events management, and the events management will do the events management from trainings, closed sessions, open sessions, seminars, webinars, conferences, and so on and so forth. And then we're going to have different, if you want, shows, talk shows, if you want, or publications that is for or against. So we're going to take the dark side and the white side and the black side and the red side, and we're going to compare with each other. We're going to have different interviews. Mm-hmm. We're going to have different processes of approach that will render, if you want, Strategy International as being a must. Now, most importantly, we're going to have headline news, as we call it, headline news. We're going to have highlights. We're going to have special interviews. We're going to have special meetings, some open, some closed. Because the idea is to comprehend, first of all, on what is happening around the world, and then utilize what we know that is happening to forecast the future, but forecast with evidence. So based on these evidences, considering even unforeseen changing variables, to utilize them in such a way that is progressive, open, liberal in thinking, and also conclusive with tangible results.
You know, I was really impressed when you were telling me the team that you've assembled and the people that you're going to be collaborating with, and they're all over the world. Yeah. Give us an idea of that. Tell us a little bit with the people that you'll be working with and how far they span, connecting you to pretty much all corners of the world.
Yeah, as I said, one of our latest successes, and this is actually due to a colleague, Stefano, who's in Washington, who knows Richard, who's in Hong Kong. And they're both leading companies, by the way. And they're there. And we had the same discussion on why should we collaborate together? So the idea is that we bring the best expertise together, because if we're a team, we work better together. Expertise matters, and it matters on the ground. You have Cyril. He's working on oil and gas, for example. He's from Holland. You got Mark Voyager. He's American, Bulgarian, and he's in Ukraine. We got people from all over the place. We got Francis. Francis is in the United States. We have Michael. He's in the United States as well. They're in Ohio. So we got other people from Washington, D.C. We got people from Brussels. We got people from London. We got people from Cyprus. And we have Omar from the United Arab Emirates. So it's complementarity. So it's basically what I've had in life that I'm actually putting it into practice. So I've been always in an environment that was European. It was international because I grew up in Brussels. So it was always European, and I always learned different languages and different skill sets, and I made different friends. And everywhere that I've been there, we had done different friends, and and everybody's there. So you got different people with different skill sets. I don't want to, not mention everybody, but there are 32 people right now, and they have their own expertise, and at the same time, their own capability to interconnect with the disciplines. So we split, because you asked me earlier, how did you split? We split under topics, under regions, and under objectives. And we got the website strategyinternational.org that we built from scratch. And it took us a bit because I don't think I'm quite easy lately, because I got a great marketing team, and we're working together. They're also young, by the way. Younger than both you and I, George.
Yeah,
but we're not.
Let's clarify that we're still young. They're just younger.
Yeah, they're younger. Yeah, but it's great to hear out from younger people, because I've been always the younger one everywhere that I've been, and I may have been wise, but I was not at the level of if you want, maturity that I should have been. But then again, I was pushing and pushing and pushing. And I was like, no, I'm mature enough. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. And now the age is now going higher. I'm going in a level like, wait, now I'm older, which means I'm more mature, which I don't think so. But nevertheless, I wanted to have a team of people that actually, like I advise others, they advise the team on how to do it better.
Right.
And this is actually also your role in this, where you will guide us and I will follow.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very simple. It is very simple because in the end of the day, we're doing something that is really honorable, I believe. It is really competitive. It will become competitive in a way that is projected in various forms in political affairs. But then we play according to the rules and according to the chessboard of international community, of the standards, of negotiations abilities. So I'm injecting all the, if you want, professional achievements that I have managed as a professor to teach. And I took these teachings, these empirical evidences that I have done in my life, and I'm adding value to it with people that I believe they can do it.
Right.
But we're also opening to more interns. We have now the first intern coming in from a recent collaboration in the university we're going to have here, and hopefully we're going to have the interns from around the world.
No, it's amazing.
It's also called to have interns from around the world. So it takes time, George, and it takes time. And my fear is, it's not the failure. My fear is myself.
How so?
How do I convince myself that what I do is right,
mm-hmm.
and that is minimum risk? But then again, if you do not take a risk, you cannot know. So
mm-hmm.
This is really good, and I want to be up to the standards for all my colleagues and all my friends. I believe that I'm passing a test every day to myself and others, but I also believe that it's really value. Because you saw it up until today, where we started, the ups and downs we had, mm-hmm. and how we are now moving into levels and levels and levels. And just to say something to our audience, that podcasts are going to be a most major element in the way that we expose the work of Strategy International. And that's why we want to have 3 or 4 podcasts, let's say, a month. Depending on the synchronization that we have. But again, I pay a lot of attention in the operational approach. And if I don't like something, I go back to it. I go back to the drawing boards, and then back testing, and then back again and back again.
Yeah, I think the important thing. Yeah, I think the important thing is that you're aware that this is constantly a working. A work that is constantly in progress, right? It's always a work in progress, and I think that's the best thing to do, right? I mean, you always need to be adapting and to be leveling up. And I'm confident that there's you're on a path of success, and I think more importantly for me, there's a wealth of knowledge that you're just waiting to share with the world.
That's the idea.
And that's exciting for me.
And that's why George, we wanted to also increase not only the people and the seniority of the people or the junior people coming in, but also to create a board of advisors. And I'm actually working on board of advisors right now. I'm in contact with 3-4 people. I'm not going to say any names until it's actually happened, but the idea is to have this, again, globality of this board of advisors that actually advise practically, operationally, and while we also find out and figure out ways to be attractive to the global market needs, because as you know, the market requires such people, but it requires also financial capabilities to enhance, to operate, and to enlarge. So the idea, as you said, in 10 years is to be operational, capable, enabled, and more free hands that we have already, but we want to be more free, more, travel around the world. We have a whole world to go around with, to meet people with. And I imagine picking you up with a plane and picking up 2 tickets or something and going to the other side of the world and meeting with people and coming back. This is what I live for. And I think this is what the people are living for as well, the colleagues.
Mario, I wanna talk a little bit about some key issues that are unfolding in today's reality. Um, just because of the knowledge that you have on these issues and just the information that you can give to the world. Obviously, one of them is Ukraine. We already had an opportunity earlier this year on my podcast to discuss it in detail. But I want to have maybe your input on this, because obviously this is a conflict that is lasting way longer than anyone could have imagined. I think. Where do things stand at the moment? I mean, do you think that there's a possibility soon that we can maybe see a light at the end of the tunnel?
No, not really. And I think I told that during your podcast. You
Mhm.
remember you asked me similar question, and just for the information of our audience, this discussion was not, pre-existing in a structure. So we move our discussions as we go along. So, and this is what I like about you, by the way. You have this easiness of moving, transiting from one topic to the other. But let me say something about Ukraine. Um, this is war we're talking about,
Mhm.
and it's not good.
Mhm.
It's not good for multiple reasons. If we look at the local level, Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine, or as we call them, the sister countries. Okay, for XYZ reasons, they were allies, and now they're battling each other, which is not good for them. I'm talking about them. Secondly, war means casualties and atrocity. Now, somebody may ask me, but why is it so important? Because there are other wars elsewhere in the world,
Mhm.
in Africa, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, you name it. There's more wars right now than ever been seen before. Now, the reason is because of the mass level of attack that's taking place,
Right.
because there is an organized army that has actually invaded another country, another sovereign country, for XYZ reasons, which are illegal for those that believe in international law. Even if Vladimir Putin considers this a special operation, there are no special operations that gives you the legal right to invade, but
Mhm.
therefore is exposing himself and utilizing its the grander vision of what he wants to see Russia into, and therefore says I'm a big power, so I go in, and it's been done in history before.
Mhm.
That I think that's the thing that he does, but the level of destruction in Ukraine is so massive at this point that, assuming that the war ends tomorrow, the actual atrocities will not stop before, let's say, a year and a half from now. Because the hate levels on the ground, with all these dead people left from either side, so big that it will not end really soon. Generations will have to come, and history has been written already that this is one of the bloodiest European soil
Right.
wars. And why
Right.
we call it European? Because Russia and Ukraine, at least in the 19th century, were European and Eurasian areas.
Mhm.
And now the big question is, who belongs to where? Does Ukraine belong to the EU? I think yes. Does Ukraine belong to NATO? If they want to, I think yes. And Vladimir Putin said that's why we're getting involved, because we told you that we should not discuss anything that relates
To the
with NATO,
expansion, yeah.
expansion of NATO. And because of that, you now have Finland and Sweden into NATO.
I was going to talk to you a little bit about that, but before we get to that, just to like end on this topic, and there's many things that we can discuss on this. Obviously, we don't want to take up too much of the time, but what do you think this conflict means for the future of Russia's relations with the international community? I think pretty much all the doors have been closed. Is there any hope for that to be reestablished?
Not really, not really, because we have a tendency in the West to see the Western Hemisphere like we've seen the whole world. but the eastern part of the world or the south part of the world is another 5 billion people. So if we're 2 billion people, let's say, you have another 5.5 in emerging people. You have a movement of, of financial power from the west to the east. I'm not talking only about China, but the whole Eastern Hemisphere in general. And there is an issue there because demographics, these countries from India to Bangladesh to Vietnam to anything, they're expanding. Indonesia, they're expanding. China is expanding. African states are expanding. And the European Union and the United States and Canada are demographically getting very older. And legal migration allows for things to move ahead because we're not doing a baby boom like France did in the 50s. So we need a baby boom in order to talk about the future of relations with other countries that are going high the level of demographics. Now, funnily enough, Russia does not. Russia also is low in demographics as well. It's been declining. Now, why Russia will eventually come to the table? It's been noticed yesterday, I think, that Vladimir Putin said he will attend the G20. That will be fun. That will be really fun because nobody will talk to him, at least initially. But eventually somebody will try to talk to him.
Right.
Or I guess President Macron will try to somehow bridge something in order to say at least hello or shake hands, or I don't know what they're going to do. You cannot do without Russia, and I think Vladimir Putin knows that, but you cannot do with Russia at this point. Energy security, food scarcity, technology inabilities, and if you want the already messed up elements that happened because of COVID and all this messing around with the global trade and the efficiencies to deliver goods and the quantity of goods that you want and natural resources is really characteristics that we're going to see them more and more often again and again and again. It seems that we are going to have to see more people fighting over scarcity of resources, mainly in Africa. Yeah. It's already been done. It seems that China also gets permissions for natural resources as well. The West will be utilizing those natural resources in their own capacity with their own strategic alliances. And therefore, strategic alliances will come to be. And where do we stand? We hope to utilize this knowledge that we have and translate it into an operational, if you want, plan or a policy plan on how to make the alliances, on how to shape alliances, on how to create the dialogue on specific needs considering the requests of the market. Because the West, unlike the East, with the exception of China and India, they have huge requests of goods. So we're still, the power of the West is that we're consuming developed countries. But developing countries are now going to the developed countries, and therefore, and eventually, these goods are going to become greater in numbers in those areas, and therefore they are going to seek solutions that are, we may see them as normal now for us, but tomorrow they're going to be competitive towards the needs that we have. Right. With an embedded value of technology, where technology, the creation of the good, the utility of the human that creates the software, the application, the R&D, and the innovation that comes with, will become a prime time competitive approach in the global market and the ways that we shape even alliances in political affairs. Not mentioning, if you want, the use of technology in environment or our space exploration, or any kind of operations, even settling on the moon or Mars, or you name it.
You're mentioning alliances, and I want to finalize on another key development that is happening right now, because we mentioned that this whole conflict in Ukraine started with the supposed expansion of NATO and further east, and Russia's intent on not having that happen, and that conflict initiated this collateral, if you want, result of having countries seek alliances now. You mentioned Finland and Sweden that wanted that are will be joining NATO, and this I think is happened in the summit that is happening these days in Spain. And you also have an EU expansion happening with Georgia, Ukraine, and Moldova seeking urgent membership. And obviously, between those three countries, you have two that I think the EU agreed to allow for the negotiations to start for the accession into the EU. Do you believe that these expansions, both for NATO and the EU, are catalyst for peace, or because of the way that things have developed now, they will just further deepen the divide and perpetuate what seems to be, at least what some are considering, a new Cold War?
Good question. You want my personal opinion?
Sure, I want. Yeah.
The word the term Cold War seems to be the case in a financial level, considering all the constraints that they put and all the financial blockades, if you want, they put in Russian oligarchs or affiliated with the Russian government oligarchs. But the expansion of in the European Union, we call it enlargement. Okay, and there's a reason why enlargement. Expansion is more aggressive. Yeah. And not only as a word, but also as an action. And enlargement is because it enlarges both ways, the capacities and the social, political, and economic and cultural expansions. So I'm trying to project the understanding that the European Union is a union in economics and cultural diplomacy and political affairs and so on. And if you've seen, even Vladimir Putin doesn't have a problem with EU enlargement. Mm-hmm. His problem is NATO because it's military. So they're afraid that for them, it's an issue of national security, as they called it, because they're in close proximity and then they will border NATO. They don't want to border NATO. That's clear. But then again, NATO has been given now the reason why more countries should join in. Because you cannot take for granted their political and cultural objectives because they're just not right. They lied multiple times. They lied. They lied politically. They lied militarily. They lied even in international law. They lied in the faces of those people that would like to understand how international law is done. You can't say things and mean other. You can't say things and do other things. And definitely you cannot bomb, malls and stores and buildings and houses. So we're talking about the inability of Russia to comprehend the values that are represented in a European or Euro-Atlantic term. Forget about the European Union or NATO. Russia of the 19th century, Russia was Eurocentric. And then the ideologies took place and then communism, et cetera, et cetera. But Russia was Eurocentric. Values and ethics, trade, culture and poetry and so on and so forth, and ballet and you name it. Mm-hmm. Language, literature, okay, religious issues, you name them. Now we see competition even in the religious affairs, because the actual problem with Ukraine also started with the self-headed of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, which belongs to the Ecumenical Patriarch in Constantinople. Mm-hmm. And now they're talking about getting back because the Russian Church has more power than ever before and seemingly thinks that it can be an ecumenical patriarchy. Mm-hmm. It cannot. So they have multiplied levels of competition in such a way that really they do not really reflect any European value for any reason. I understand that Russia is big and the federal state is that it is, and it wants to be run the way that they want to, and it's their own state and great, all this and accepted and preserved and everything. But you cannot go and attack whomever you want. If we legalize the attack of Russia into Ukraine, is like legalizing the what Turkey did into Cyprus by illegally invading Cyprus,
Mhm.
and the result that they did. Only Russia did it in a massive scale, and it did it in a bigger country, space-wise and people-wise. And the atrocities that are daily happening are so big. And now either side, I presume, because one fights without defense, so it's normal that they would kill each other, that the hate factor has become embedded into their bloodstreams on either sides. And I really am scared that Ukraine may not only need trillions and billions in order to
Rebuild. Yeah.
but it will need a lot of psychological transitions and generations of people to be able to even safeguard the sovereignty of the state, because a lot of small powers will emerge in case Zelensky doesn't go through the transitions that will need to be done, considering the need to rebuild Ukraine.
Right.
Ukraine is not any country. Ukraine was also, the Battle of Ukraine was between Nazi Germany and the Soviets, because whoever controls Ukraine controlled the feeding of the European armies back then, either Soviet or Nazi. Yeah. So you can understand, even now we talk about food. Now this happened, and now we have the issue again of the food elements and what is missing as well. Add to it metals, add to it other raw materials that are coming from Ukraine, and also the fear factor that this may spill over to other countries such as Moldova or Georgia. And like a week ago, Georgians hit the streets putting European flags that they want European future. And Europe, whether Putin likes it or not, European Union and NATO come hand in hand together.
Right, right. It's interesting. It's definitely interesting, and we're living a time where things are definitely uncertain, and for me, you know, and for all the political buffs out there, this is an area of focus that draws our attention on a daily basis. And you're right. Whatever happens, whatever developments seem to happen, are going to lay out the foundations of this new world, like of this new future. And I hope that there will be things for us to learn. But then again,
I have a small suggestion. I mean, this may sound quite interesting, but this is a very good opportunity for those that feel inspired by what's happening, even by Finland and Sweden, like they did to join NATO, that other countries can join NATO. And whatever other countries may say, like Turkey, for example, who negotiated, even Cyprus could have done a letter of intent, and establish a diplomatic tie to NATO to just feel the vibes.
Mm-hmm.
And to learn from those vibes. Other countries can also pinpoint their abilities, like I said, Georgia or Moldova, to join the EU. Actually, Moldova applied with Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And also Moldova got the start of negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
And Moldova is a beautiful country, by the way. Beautiful country. And it has huge issues with Transnistria and Russia, but also has issues with Romania. Part of the negotiations is to engage into constant discussions and solve these issues, like Greece has been trying to do with the Balkans, and affiliates and inclusive diplomacies to include the Western Balkans. So the European Union and the values are there. And Russia could have done a great job into adding value to the European ethics and the values and the transitions and the cultural diplomacy, if only would not have done such a political mess,
right,
and such a military mess, and create a hate level between Ukrainians and Russians. Forget about the rest of us. Ukrainians and Russians between them. Because think about it. Let's say they withdraw. Let's say they withdraw today and they give back all these areas. They will still border each other.
Yeah, yeah.
So how would you feel in that level? How would you feel that level in the borders between Ukraine and Russia?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
What are you going to see? How are you going to rebuild? You're going to say, I'm sorry, I'm going to rebuild.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that. Nazi Germany still repays its dues. It still has to repay a lot of dues to other countries, politically, financially, and culturally, including to Greece, for example. For all the things that it has done, and the amazing things that it has done to lead the European Union and be sitting down in the same table to negotiate. But it took them more than 50 years
Right.
to even reach that level. So imagine what damage Russia has done to itself, most importantly, and then Ukraine, and then the rest of us.
Interesting. Mario, this conversation can go on for hours. I want to thank you for your time. Congratulate you once again for this new era, this new chapter, which is going to bring through fantastic things, a lot of value for a lot of people all over the world. I'm looking forward to it, as I'm sure you are as well. Thank you again, and thank you to all the listeners or the viewers watching this, whether it's video or audio. We thank you, and we will see you all in the next episode. Thank you, Mario, once again.
Thank you very much, George, and good luck to you, and welcome to a new era, as you said. Thank you.
Take care.